Very excited for our next panel, which features some of the fantastic work that people are doing. We talked a lot this morning about how we might. There's been a lot of hypotheticals. I think that here we have a great example of how people are actually bringing AI into their teaching and learning. I'm very excited. So I'm going to pass it over to Matt and to get us started.
All right, thanks. Thanks for being here, everybody, today. We're really happy to have the opportunity to showcase some of our fantastic faculty at UT who are really embracing the opportunities that come with the use of AI in the classroom in ways that are really forward-looking, but also, as we are talking about today, especially when we see how some of the employers are talking about the future of work with AI, how we're preparing students through their work in the classroom, whatever discipline that they're pursuing, to become ready to enter into the workforce. So my name is Dr. Matthew Russell. I work in the Center for Teaching and Learning here at UT. And I just want to say at the very beginning here, we're so excited in the CTL to have the opportunity to partner with the Office of Academic Technology. Really, I can't say enough positive things about this group. They haven't been here for more than a few years at this point, but they've already had a transformational impact in the way that we talk about educational technology at UT. They're amazing colleagues. They have a standard of excellence that's set very high. And so I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Shell and Casey, David, and Evan for all the work that they do. In my role at the CTL in supporting academic technology, they make my job a lot easier and a lot more rewarding. So I'd just like to say that at the beginning. Thank you for being here. You know, in the CTL, we talk a lot about technology in ways that perhaps are a little bit different when we think about the value proposition of higher education in its relationship to the workforce and society in general. You know, before AI came along, this is a picture of a classroom at UT for a recent Texas Teach Up experience that we had and some notes that were made along the side about critical thinking. And it may not look like a dystopian technology landscape or Star Trek, but this is the way classrooms look at UT, and they have for a long, long time. And if you went back 20 years, it would probably look a little bit like this too. So for us in the CTL, we talk a lot about teaching and helping faculty and instructional staff and graduate students prepare to become excellent teachers. We talk a lot to students, much more so lately, in understanding how they function well in the side of a classroom. So for teachers, we help them develop new activities. For students, we encourage them to develop new strategies for learning, and technology plays a big role in that today, of course. But in our name, it seems rather banal, but teaching and learning for us represents something a little bit different. When you think about the classroom experience that teachers and students have together, it's not isolated in the sense when you're teaching, you're talking to people on your own. When students are learning, they're cramming through problems or memorizing terminology or applying concepts to those terminology. They do that on their own often. But the classroom space, teaching and learning together, is a specific kind of experience for students at UT. And students at UT are incredibly fortunate to have that experience in the classroom with their faculty. So when we think about AI in this space with these teachers and these students who are all excellent as teachers and as students in order even to get here, we want to encourage people from Microsoft and Indeed to think about investing in students upskilling for AI and teachers learning to become more literate in their teaching with AI, but also investing in relationships. You know, how teachers and students work together, that kind of underlying alchemy that happens in a classroom is so crucial for helping students want to learn more, to be creative, to go the extra mile in working with their faculty, to getting faculty to want to stay up late to grade papers like a lot of us are doing right now, and thinking about how that is a rewarding experience. So as much as the future provides potential and possibility as well as a lot of challenges, it's this kind of classroom landscape that we see as so important where teaching and learning is happening as an experience for our students. And probably, unless it's on the bridge of the enterprise, classrooms are going to look like this 20 years from now too. But how does AI play a role in this space? And so I'm really happy to have our faculty panelists today, Dr. Jason Rosenblum from the College of Education, Dr. Ben Bensman from the School of Business, and then Dr. Nina Talang from Engineering. So we're going to have a series of presentations here just to give you a sense as to how these faculty are using AI and working with their students to develop that relationship. So we'll have a presentation and a chance for a few questions. After the last presentation and questions, we'll open it up from questions from the floor. So with that, I hand it over to Dr. Rosenblum.
Thank you so much, Dr. Russell. It is a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody. So, as Dr. Russell said, my name is Jason Rosenblum. I teach in the Learning Technologies program within CNI, within the College of Ed. My certificate program is called Learning, Equity, Action, and Design, and the emphasis for that program really is to help teachers that are in service, former teachers, humanize pedagogy as they apply technologies in ways that are innovative, and that includes a fairly wide range of technology components within an ecosystem that includes AI and augmented reality and interactive digital narrative and all of the regular tools you might find in a face-to-face or a hybrid learning class. And so what I'd like to share with you today are actually some student examples of, from a class that I teach or taught this semester in technology innovation for digital justice. Now, to set up that framing, I'd like to also share a little bit about scholarship within this area. So next slide, please. That QR code, by the way, goes to my bio, which links to a lot of this stuff. So I co-edit a journal in AI in Education. It's a new journal from Emerald Publishing. We are looking for great papers and manuscripts, as well as people who are interested in reviewing. A shameless plug. If that's you, please go to that URL. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I like to encourage from people that contribute to the journal, but also is a framing device for both my work and scholarship within this area, as well as how I've set up the class, is that my perspective on responsible use of AI in the classroom decenters the primacy of the technology in favor of questions about design, and specifically design of things like pedagogy, design of things like student engagement, design of all of the things that go into creating a robust, humanizing approach to working within classroom spaces. And what that means is looking at relational components, right? So whom do the students become as they're using AI within this space? Whom do the teachers become? What does the use of AI do to mentor student relationships, especially when that technology is very dynamic? So talking about these concepts in a upcoming book forward in a book on generative AI literacy that's currently under review by Springer, and this concept is going to be talked about more through editorials within the journal. Next slide, please. So as a way to kind of narrow in from really broad applications of scholarship, I think I need to kind of point out or reiterate, if you've heard, AI in education is an incredibly diverse field, right? It is not only interdisciplinary, it's transdisciplinary. It crosses every single sector that involves either training or education in some capacity, right? And so I just came back from the American Education and Research Association, or AERA 2025 conference, where I helped to lead some discussions around this topic. Some of the things that I learned actually support a lot of these efforts, both from the folks that are also on the panel, but also from the students. And so what you're going to see here shortly is a demo reel of students in which I've asked them to position themselves as not only students and not only as creators, not only as designers, but also as educators. I asked them to create engaging AI-based learning experiences within the context of larger projects. They're not the only ones who have done this. Actually, there are people that have presented scholarship from AERA in which, some examples, University of Houston, Susie Gronseth has an amazing application where she's integrated 3D-based, game-based learning environments, and an AI is embedded within those spaces to support critical AI literacy. In addition, we have people like Dr. Wegeseth from UCLA, who has created this incredible application as a way to integrate AI within an interactive digital narrative to reduce political polarization, which is critical during these kinds of times. So these kinds of examples are not the only ones. We're seeing examples of integration of AI that can help increase student engagement, both across cognitive domains, emotional domains, et cetera. We're also seeing applications of AI through smart, systematic design that can actually support positive outcomes in critical literacy in general. Next slide, please. So this is the class. So these folks were challenged to build learning applications through a critical pedagogy lens. And those projects what you'll see are prototypes, and so you'll see some things that have been produced in Figma in which they're visualizing what they're wanting to do, but you'll also see real augmented reality examples in some cases, as well as examples of AI tools that were created using Odin AI, which is not adopted here. I'm a part of a closed beta. This is a commercial grade product, but what Odin did for these students is it allowed them and us to do some very careful prompt engineering, right, such that they could narrowly scope the AI. So even though you'll see demos, it's kind of hard to kind of see what's going on behind the scenes. And so because of really narrowly scoped applications, the students were able to tell the AI, please respond in this kind of way, don't ever respond in these other ways, and if people try to ask you to tackle topics beyond your scope, don't respond and instead redirect them, right? So now they're able to actually kind of control to some extent how the AI responds. Next slide, please. And can we please bring up the video? I'm just going to talk over this video. There's actually no sound. So technology innovation for digital justice from last spring. These are the folks highlighted here. First project is called Homie. Homie is an app for international students at UT. The idea is to provide a safe and welcoming community to international students who come to campus, right? And so this creator's vision for this project involved an AI chatbot, but as a way to support community-based elements. So it's not the AI working separately, but the AI is essentially prompting them to consider things. It's asking them to create their own journeys. Next, we have Linkhorn, also an AI app targeting international students who have significant challenges, especially in this day and age. This helps them to apply language immersion as a way to, as they're walking around town, as they're interacting. Now, okay, actually, can we pause just right here, just 1 second, Julie? Thank you. Sorry, Casey. So what you're seeing here, and it's not obvious, right? What this creator has envisioned, as she's envisioned, and this doesn't work, it's just a prototype, because she didn't have access to the tools at the time, although we do have the tools now that are emerging. This slide demonstrates her understanding of generative AI literacy, such that she's asking the person to tell the AI how it should respond, what role it should play, right? So AI is not aware in any sense of the word, but it does provide opportunities for role play. So the person in this app, if it were designed according to this vision, would be able to say, I want the AI to respond in a certain way, I'm going to play the role in this certain way, and here's the scope of my discussion. Please continue. Thank you. So this is an application. Actually, this one was designed, I think, also with a component of ChatGPT, but there's also a very similar kind of a process that's been used to do tuning in this case. Next, we have an app called Thinkle, which is an interactive story creation tool. What you're going to see here is a combination of interactive narrative, some augmented reality, as well as AI. But the idea is that it's targeting K through 8 levels. And the idea is that it helps students to activate their imagination, right? So now this is some of the AR pieces, and I know this is going very quickly. She has envisioned this as a complete project, complete with a lesson plan aligned to TEKS. But the AI component then interacts in such a way that it helps the student create and imagine stories. But more than that, as they're imagining stories, the app, while admittedly just a tad bit buggy, it will generate images, right? So the idea is that it's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the student, trying to help them narrow the scope of what they're doing, and it does create images along the way. This is an innovative feature. We're venturing into multimodal territory using chatbots, but ultimately this is a reading activity that's aligned to standards. Next up, we have FocuWorld. FocuWorld is an app designed for people that have challenges with attention, right? So, and these are university students that might have challenges with attention. So these are things, this is in particular, doesn't have an accompanying lesson plan, but it is designed for somebody who might say, okay, I need to learn how to focus. I want to incorporate mindfulness practices in my own studying, in my own work. The AI chatbot is, again, narrowly scoped to help the person kind of walk through the process. There's an interactive narrative component here. Again, we're going really super fast, but you can kind of get the gist of what this app is about. Next up is Welcome to Al-Wadi, which this is designed by a Fulbright scholar who is actually taking this project back to Indonesia, where the project, for whom the project was designed. It was for a small village within Indonesia, and the goal was to increase environmental awareness of a river in Indonesia that's undergoing a significant amount of erosion. So she's actually planning on taking this and the associated chatbot and actually using it by the river within classroom spaces, right? They have access to Starlink, so this is possible there. And so for her, she's actually used this, she's designed this in this class. And by the way, this also is a demonstration of translanguaging, because what you're seeing here is a couple of different dialects within languages that are present in Indonesia. Last up, we have an application called Witness Her, which is an app designed to be supportive of women who suffer from domestic violence or under threat of domestic violence. And so this is an app that, again, is designed, that uses AI as a supportive component, narrowly defined, narrowly scoped, as a way to help people through kind of identifying the extent to which that they might be at risk, markers that tell them that they might be at risk. So I want to congratulate all of these students for this, for their wonderful efforts here. Next slide, please. So what I maintain, and this is something that came up during AERA, the technology that we're seeing today, the AI of today, is not going to be the AI that we're going to see in a year. We're already seeing multimodal applications of AI. More than that, we're also seeing companies produce, using some of the tools that are listed here, web front ends that allow for not just one-on-one chatting with the same chatbot with a single history, but multiple people being able to interact with one chatbot and a shared history. You can do that. If you're a dev, you absolutely can do that with tools like Retool or even chathub.gg. So, but the idea is that now, in my mind, it raises a real question. If multiple people can collaborate, and remember there was a study that showed that collaboration regarding AI increased as long as you have intentional and systematic approaches to design. What does this mean for everyday educational technology tools? Think about your discussion forums. Think about Canvas discussion. Think about EdSTEM. How long might it be before we start seeing chatbots appear, and what role is that chatbot going to play to mediate that discussion? And so from where I stand, I think we need a lot of research done in these spaces to help us understand so that we can build not only better systems, but systems that continue to humanize both face-to-face, online, and hybrid spaces. And next slide. So that's it. If you didn't grab the QR code, please go ahead and scan it. Reach out. If you're curious about the journal, curious about the work, would be happy to follow up with you. Thank you all very much.
Any questions that we could have for Dr. Rosenblum before we go on to our next presentation? Come up to the mic if you like. I think you've wowed them, Jason.
I'll be happy to take questions also after.
Well, let me just ask a quick question, if it's
Please.
okay.
Sure.
What I'm really inspired by is how students are using these tools in relationship to communities, you know, and kind of exploring and supporting communities. One of the things that we see a lot of times in social media is this kind of tribal sense of hardening of communities through technology communication, right? Do you think that AI, as you look into the future and you imagine what students are doing, do you have a sense that there's a way that we're questioning some of the limitations around how people talk to each other in social media especially? Or is there a tendency perhaps that AI and the tools that we use are going to be folded into those online community spaces without breaking down barriers?
Thanks for that question. And to borrow a word that you used earlier, Dr. Russell, I think the alchemy here really focuses around questions that are not always related to the technology, right? It's like, to what extent are we curious about all of those things that you mentioned, and how can AI help to facilitate even greater connections and greater collaborations? And critically, what are the risks, right? What are the risks to building community in spaces where the tendency for people, when they're using these systems right now, is that they tend to envision themselves and the AI in one-to-one relationships. I'm here, I'm using a tutor. I'm here, I'm interacting with ChatGPT, maybe as a thought partner. These are all wonderful things. We need everything. We need all of the innovation in all of the spaces, and we need a lot of it, a lot more than we're having right now. But we also, I think, need to ask really critical relational questions. So this is why I'm interested in research scholarship areas that have to do with digital relational competence, meaning that in what ways can we develop knowledge competencies either by students or by instructors, and what are the results of developing those kinds of competencies in terms of the impact to our design and ultimately the impact to the communities in which we inhabit. So I think it's a really critical question.
All right, thank you again, Jason. Let's move on then. If you have questions again for Dr. Rosenblum at the end, we'll have a time for open questions, but turn it over to Dr. Benson from McCombs.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Benson, and I am a faculty member at the McCombs School of Business. A few minutes ago, Jason talked about the pace of change with this technology, and what that reminded me of is my first experience with generative AI, which was around November 30th, 2022, which is the day ChatGPT 3.5 was just dropped on us out of seemingly nowhere. And I spent most of my winter break absolutely mesmerized. And on December 22nd, 2022, I wrote an email to all of the faculty in the Department of Marketing. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts because I look at this now with the benefit of perspective 2.5 years later. It's like, some things have changed and some things haven't changed that much. Just a few excerpts. Playing with these technologies over the past few weeks, it's clear that the current GPT 3.5 technology will have a tremendous impact on our civilization. The next generation GPT-4 launches in mid-2023 and is anticipated to be 10x better. Our AI future is unfolding rapidly. We should expect that our students will use ChatGPT and similar AI tech in completing their coursework. As faculty, we can review assignments, quizzes, and exams and anticipate how students will use this technology. ChatGPT still has a long way to go. The AI was instructed using a data set through 2021, so it's not knowledgeable about current events. That obviously has been updated now. The OpenAI initiative cautions ChatGPT sometimes writes plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. That sadly has not changed. In my own testing, ChatGPT consistently gave incorrect answers to the prompt, "What are the natural lakes in Texas?" I used ChatGPT to generate answers to a 10-question open book internet quiz used in my executive MBA course, and it got 3 or 4 out of a possible of 10. So I went in to say that the future for AI is here, and we as instructors needed to anticipate and integrate this into our teaching. I accepted an appointment a year ago as a McCombs teaching fellow, focusing on helping other faculty with teaching, and I naturally made my focus integrating AI into teaching. And I have an optimistic vision that if we properly integrate AI into education, we can not only deal with the challenges of AI, but we can actually make critical thinking, we can make learning better. And that is my optimistic viewpoint. We survey all McCombs faculty twice a year in August and in January on their use of generative AI and their attitudes toward it. And I added a new question in January asking faculty whether they felt like this technology was in general hindering or hurting their teaching. And I was stunned to see that to the extent that the faculty had an opinion at all, they overwhelmingly felt that it was helping. There was very, very small numbers of faculty who felt like that their teaching was being hurt through generative AI. And that was a good segue for what I'd like to talk about, which is my vision for using AI to make teaching better. Some of you saw this story in the Wall Street Journal on April 3rd. It's one of a whole genre of scare stories about how AI is going to somehow fundamentally worm into our brains and make us stop thinking. How I realized AI was making me stupid and what I do now. And my response to that, and I actually have, I write my own Substack, businessai.substack.com, which is targeted at business faculty on how to integrate AI into teaching. But I have found that with my students, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience as well, which is the more that you can actually encourage students to use AI, the less trusting they become. And my students all know my mantra, which is when it comes to AI, trust but verify. There's all kinds of good information there, but students quickly learn that they will get misled. And instead, I encourage them to use AI as a tool to feed their curiosity and use it to ask probing questions, to follow up, to challenge AI, to chat back and say, that doesn't sound right. Give me more specifics. And ultimately, it's up to students to make their own decisions. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can integrate AI into our teaching, and what are some of the strategies. And I've identified 5 strategies, and if you have another one, maybe you'll come up to the mic afterward and tell me some other strategy that doesn't fit within this bucket. But the 5 I've identified are to increase rigor. We have found that in some courses, particularly that are more quantitative or involve coding, students can we can accelerate their learning. We can cover more material and lead to a more robust set of understanding quicker. We can also add time constraints. So I'll do low-stakes in-class quizzes that have a tight time limit. Students are welcome to use AI, but they also know that they're going to be scored on their use of the terminology as used in the course. And AI might not necessarily use the terminology as used in the course. Oral presentations is what I'm going to share a few examples about in just a moment. I'm a big fan of oral presentations as ways to both not only make it assignments more AI resistant, but also at the same time, that's actually a more natural learning experience for students to share orally, because that's what they're going to be doing in the real world after graduation. Handwritten assignments, I don't do this one, but I know a lot of faculty have moved back to blue books. Ugh. And we have secure digital exams. Some of you are using HonorLock or the equivalent and to do that as well. I want to focus just briefly on oral presentations and oral discussions, because to me, of all of the 5 I just shared, that has been the most useful and relevant, and actually, in my view, has improved my teaching. First example, this is one that's super easy to do. I used to have students in an MBA course, they would write up a marketing plan and they would send it in for a grade early in the semester. I had them still do that same assignment, but how do I know they actually understand the material? So I added another scoring component that I didn't have in the past, which is a short 10-minute meeting with me. That's just me and the group. I prepare in advance questions about their marketing plan, and then I ask them those questions, and then I score them on their evaluation. This takes 1 class period for me to cycle through all the groups, but the result is I get a really good sense for, is everyone in the group kind of equally contributing to this, or is there like one specialist that tends to be leading the conversation? They have to understand their marketing plan because they have no idea what questions I'll be asking. Another, in the same course, toward the end of the semester, I used to have, and many of us do this, right? Student group stands up, make a presentation to the class, and the problem with that is, first of all, it's boring for the students, and it also does not really simulate reality. When I think about my own professional work, there's not that many times I would stand up and make a presentation to a group of this size. I mean, I would do that occasionally, but not in a normal business setting. So instead, I actually divided the groups up. So one group was the evaluator or the executive team, and the other group was not presenting, but they would only do just a 5-minute summary, and then they would take 15 minutes of questions. I'd have the evaluating group or the executive group prepare questions in advance that they would also submit for a score to show that they had read the materials. And so once again, the students have to be prepared to defend their ideas. And that setting of sharing with an executive team, that is very much like their reality after graduation. And then I'd like to call out Brandon Campanelli. Brandon, could you raise your hand? I think most people already know who Brandon is, but Brandon and my colleague Bill Peterson had a paper published in Harvard Business Publishing last December. Scrap the final paper or presentation, lead a simulated meeting instead. And I highly recommend this approach. Bill Peterson was all over me about trying this out, and I was teaching a new course this spring, so it was the perfect time to do it. But Brandon and Bill's paper is focused on group projects, and the course I was in was individual projects. So I thought, can this work as well? So what I did, I was recently appointed as one of the faculty board members to the University of Texas Co-op, and this is the part where I interject. Every penny of profit from the co-op goes directly to student scholarships. I had these students do a merchandising project where they picked a product at the co-op and then they evaluated how that product was priced and presented at the co-op versus 2 other retailers. In the past, I would have them just write up the store check and send it in. With AI, I didn't know whether or not they would actually be doing that themselves or they'd be using AI. So instead, I had them write a pre-meeting memo using the concepts from the simulated leadership meeting. I actually divided them up into roles that were randomly assigned. So each student played the role of a channel manager, and then they also had the chance they were randomly assigned to play a role of a chief marketing officer, a chief financial officer, and a vice president of sales. And they rotated through these meetings where they had a chance to both present to the executive team, be evaluated by their peers on and answering how well they answered their peers' questions. The hardest part of this whole thing, which I've actually turned into another student assignment now, is making all of these random assignments proved to be incredibly hard. So I chatted with AI, which proposed doing a Python script. Now for me, that was a big problem because nothing in my career required me to use Python, but I used AI to teach me how to use Python. I now developed a script, and so these student assignments are all done, an automated push of a button, randomly assigned without conflicts to their respective roles. And I'm now actually taking this same idea of Python and turning it into an exercise for my students on how they can learn how to use Python and then use that for Fermi estimation in an assignment. So these are some simple things. I didn't have to turn my whole course upside down to make these modifications, and yet the feedback from the students was that this type of interaction was much more engaging for them, this type of active participation. And so I'd offer to you that we can do better for our students. We can actually improve learning, we can improve critical thinking, but we have to change the way we do our assignments and the way we evaluate and the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom.
All right, thank you, Ben. Any quick questions for Ben? Yeah.
I'm just going to project. So I saw a statistic that business schools have one of the lowest AI adoptions of any of the schools in academia. Is that true?
Absolutely true. Yep. That was from Anthropic, did that. And I think it has to do with, the question was, is it true that business schools have relatively low adoption rates for using generative AI? And I think that's absolutely true. And I think it's true for a couple of reasons. One of which is, while AI is good for more language-oriented activities, it really sucks at math. And we have a lot of finance and accounting where it's demonstrably less useful, although it's getting better at that all the time. And I think that culturally, we just did not embrace AI as fast as some other areas, which is sort of weird because, like, in the professional world, marketing is one of the fields that has adopted AI the fastest. I will say that overwhelmingly, my MBA students this semester in a survey, 90% of them had used AI in the last day. So I think that with regard to at least our MBA students, they are rapidly adopting it.
Any other quick questions for Ben? I think it raises a really important point about how much do we really know in terms of student usage of AI, how much of that is anecdotal, and how do we think they're using it? I mean, we certainly have constructed a lot of our own hypotheses around why students turn to AI, but I think what's really interesting, what Ben is talking about especially, is that there is a transformative moment in the use of AI where we think it's doing something in this kind of remediated way. We talked about Google before and searching, but something happens, a light bulb goes off, where students begin to think about using it differently for purposes that they didn't imagine first. And I think that is when that kind of experience happens in a trust-based environment like a classroom where we have those relationships that are very strong, students and faculty working together.
And I modify many of my assignments to ask students to use AI in the assignment. And some of those assignments, I then have them tell me the prompt or prompts that they used in that assignment. I even have a protocol where they will submit their prompt. I have an AI evaluate their prompt based on what I consider to be best practices in prompting, and I have an AI-generated response back to them via email that gives them feedback on their prompting, and that actually has been shown to make their prompting better. It's automated feedback. They know it's AI-generated, but nevertheless, that feedback does help make their prompting better.
Yeah, exactly. When AI use becomes scaffolded, like when we talk about an educational context as opposed to transactional, that's when the real power of AI shows itself, especially in contexts where students are going to be expected to use it in the workforce. Okay, thanks again, Ben. All right, so turn it over to our last presenter, Dr. Nina Talang from the engineering.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Nina Talang. I'm in electrical and computer engineering in the Cockrell School of Engineering. So this work was done with two other individuals, Bishweshwar Ramal, who is an ECE alum. He was a former student of mine, and then Sneha Balab, she's an undergraduate student in computer science. She's a sophomore, or she's just completed her sophomore year. So in this work, we started this work a year ago in the summer of 2024. It was just a chance conversation that I had with BP, that's Bishweshwar, just a chance conversation. He had just graduated and is working at Visa, and I just happened to bump into him, and he said that he's also working on a startup to create a better user interface for generative AI. And I said, oh, well, that's awesome. I can maybe use this in my first year, my freshman level intro to computing class, and we can sort of try that out. I teach that class every semester, fall, spring. I've taught it for, I think this semester was my 18th or 19th time that I've taught it, so I have a lot of data on student performance, and maybe we can incorporate this new tool and see, how it kind of impacts student learning outcomes. So last summer we started working on this, and so what I'm going to present is our work on this project in the context of this first year engineering class, computing class, and then some of the data that we collected on student performance. Okay, so this course, ECE 306, Intro to Computing, it is a required course taken by all of our first year ECE students. There are about 400 of them who join our department every fall. Most of them take the course in the fall, and then some take it in the spring. So the content is just computer system fundamentals, so a little bit of computer programming, some computer architecture. The prerequisites are none. So there's no math prerequisite. There's actually just no prerequisite at all. Now, but this makes it actually harder on the students, because some students, or many of our students, actually come in with some prior computer programming experience. And so this is what makes it challenging, because the students are not equally prepared. So since there's no prerequisite, this actually makes it, I think, sort of really, there's a lot of inequity in the classroom. And I think over the years, it's become significant, I would say, because the majority, like 80% of our students, have some computer programming proficiency, but then the remaining 20% have none. And that kind of just makes it they are at a huge disadvantage as a result. I've taught this class 18 times. This was actually the 19th time, so I've developed several resources. I, of course, have slides. I have videos, I have lesson plans, I have old exams, I have quizzes, I have recitation session material. I've introduced supplemental sessions, supplemental instruction sessions. I have office hours, of course. I have a bevy of TAs last fall. I had 9 TAs. In the fall, I usually have a large number of TAs who help me. So really, there is a lot of support. But it's not really personalized, and so it does not really meet that challenge. To some extent it does, but I think the students who are really prepared, who have always done well, and who come from sort of educational backgrounds that are just, are excellent, they're the ones who are more likely to go to office hours, they're more likely to go to SI sessions, and so then this disparity becomes even greater. So that's where this innovative approach comes in. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. The whole thrust here is that using generative AI to create customized question banks for the students based on just my course materials. Personalization, so tailoring it to the learning experience of the student, to answer follow-up questions that students may have. And then relevance, as in it's trained on course materials, and so that makes, there are some firm bounds, so students are not just going deeper into some rabbit holes by going to the internet for answers and so forth. So GenX is the name of the startup created by BP. It's an AI-driven application that generates context-aware interactive GUIs. So the main innovation here is that the user experience, the user interface is just friendly. It dynamically generates content for students in real time, so explanations of concepts, deeper explanations of concepts, moderately hard questions to difficult questions based on student prompts, and it's based on only course materials. So we created two tools, one called the textbook tool, which is an AI-powered book expert is the way we look at it. So this tool was trained on the text, and this is with the author's permission. And then the second tool, the modules tool, which was a tools created individually for all the modules in my Canvas course. And the modules tool had these interactive AI-generated quizzes or questions. So the idea was that I would teach something in a given week. That material, all of the supporting sort of resources are all available to the students. And then there's this chatbot that's released. And the chatbot is then a way for the students to quiz themselves, like, do I know this? Do I know this? I don't know this. I need some more explanation, and so forth. And that kind of, at the end of the week, they kind of know where they stand, and then they can move on to the next module. So the textbook tool, the idea is students ask questions. They receive explanations based on the textbook language and the voice in the textbook. And then they can ask follow-up questions to deepen their understanding. So here are some examples. This is from this UI. So for instance, the student is asked, what is the difference between a stack and heap memory? And then AI generates that text there. And then the student can follow up with picture it for me, and then it gives some more real life examples and so forth. And then the student can go deeper and deeper, but it is deeper and deeper just based on the textbook material. So for instance, if the student asks another random question like that is not within the scope of the class, the AI will actually spit out, I don't know this. And this is not within the scope of this course. On the side here are some suggested questions. So the idea is that the student is asking this tutor a question and then a follow-up question. Based on that, the AI tutor will then ask the student back some questions. The modules tool here, the AI tutor generates questions that are aligned with the textbook content. We also uploaded all of my resources as well, the resources that I myself have generated, including questions on old exams and question banks and so forth. So this is what it was trained on, and so the AI-generated questions are sort of based on that. And it gives immediate feedback to the student, and then clarifies misunderstandings. So here is an example. So this is what we call the examiner mode of this new tool. So for instance, the tutor is asking the student to describe how a multiplexer works. And then the answer to this could be, I do not know how a multiplexer operates. Can you explain it to me? And then this is what it explains, and you can go further and further. Or if you understand it and you give the right answer, it'll give you a more difficult question. So here is the student usage data. So we surveyed the students 3 times in the semester. The first time was around week 4, and that survey was not mandatory, and we did not get a great response, as in it wasn't sort of a complete response. The only students who responded were the ones who were using it. So, you know, that wasn't really indicative. So week 7 and week 12, we administered 2 more surveys that were mandatory just for completion. And this was the usage. So the chatbot usage, about 55% in week 7, and then it went up to about 60%. So yeah, you know, more than half the class were using it. And then here in the second graph is the chatbot usage per grade interval. So this kind of tells us, and this is after midterm 2, this kind of tells us that the students who were, I would say, the students who had, I would say, a less solid understanding, who scored less than 60%, for instance, on the exam, used it more than the students who scored above a 90. So, and this, I mean, there are multiple ways to interpret this. I mean, when I looked at this and I said, oh my gosh, is this what caused it to happen? But this is not really causal, I don't think, because then when we look at other data, like qualitative data, it doesn't suggest that this was what was causing it. But yeah, at a glance, it seems like, I don't know, you know, what is this doing? So student performance. So mean course GPA, I compared our mean course GPA from last fall when I first introduced these AI tutors with 2 previous semesters. And last fall, we had actually close to 200 students. Last spring was about 90. The previous fall was about 90 again. So last fall, we had about double the students in my section. And the course GPA did go up, which is, you know, it can, I mean, course GPA is just one indicator. But I think what is more sort of exciting, the data that I think is more exciting, is the percentage of D's and F's, which fell by, you know, fell from about 10% to 2%, which is significant, given that the class size also went up. Qualitative feedback. So the pros, so this is from the students who use the tools, that they found the explanations clear. There were quick answers, interactive interface, and then just from kind of anecdotal sort of evidence, students liked the fact that they could use it any time of the day or night. Students, you know, they tend to be night owls, and that's not when we have office hours. So this is a great way for them to get their questions answered. The cons, occasional math errors, and then complex topics needed human help, which I think is actually a pro. You know, from an educator's point of view, it is good that students actually did identify that for complex topics, you do actually need to go to office hours, you need to go to class, you need to watch videos made by the instructor, but they saw it as a con, but they did recognize it, which was great. From the students who did not use the tools, and note that the students who fared better on exams actually used the tool less, but this may have been why they use the tool less. There's generally a mistrust of any AI, occasional inaccuracies, and they don't want to sort of, you know, have it affect their understanding of a topic. But also, they could explain the course materials were sufficient. So they did not feel the need. And so that goes back to our motivation for creating this, is that Students come with a very, very kind of different set of educational experiences, and for students who come in with a good understanding of computer programming and just computer architecture, they then come to our course or my course, and they have all of these resources, all of this. They don't really need, they're preparing for a midterm exam. They feel like, yeah, I can solve the old midterms, no problem. I don't need to actually kind of use this additional tool. So future work, improving numerical calculations. I mean, this is, we don't really have too many, fortunately, in this class. There aren't too many numerical calculations, so that's not really a problem. Though, teaching students how to prompt well may be something that we would like to work on. And then also actually do some data analysis on their prompting. So something that we are sort of considering for this next semester is to analyze their prompts and then figure out where the knowledge gaps are and do it sort of on a continual basis, so that way we are sort of meeting their needs through the semester. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nina. We have time for a few questions. If anybody would like to come to the mic, you could just raise your hand and I can repeat it.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, Ben.
So this is using GenX?
Yes.
And what is GenX doing that would be beyond what I could do with a custom GPT or Notebook LM, something like that?
It's the user interface that is friendlier, that is, it's a user interface that is, I think, this examiner mode, the content, explanation mode. I think it's a user interface that is better. Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that, actually. So to what extent does that tool provide you insights through analytics in terms of prompts and responses and so forth?
Yeah, so right now we don't.
Uh-huh.
Yes, right now that is a drawback, that we are not actually keeping track of the prompts.
Yeah.
We just haven't done it. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of our future work.
Yeah, I don't know many systems that actually allow that. I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, and so so our collaborator BP we are hoping that we are sort of in the design of this new, the 2.0 of GenX, we are going to sort of keep track of the student prompts.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's a similar critique that I have of a lot of these RAG tools, so
yeah.
Thanks.
Yes.
Really cool, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Two questions. Did you notice, or were able to measure during the classroom environment where you're coding, did you notice, A, a difference in attendance, or B, any difference in the kinds of richness of the questions going on that you connect to the possibility of a tool affecting either of those?
That's a good question. So attendance, no, because we do a lot of activities in the class that, students know that is a way that, if they attend, they get it. If they don't, then they just miss out on a lot. And then I do Instapoll as well, they know that. So attendance, no. As far as questions, I don't think so. I don't think that changed. There was no point in the semester last fall or even this spring where I felt, oh yeah, they are, this is remarkably different from previous semesters. I didn't see that.
I just want to verify that I read the bar chart right. The difference in grade is significantly higher.
Yeah.
So that's like a, whoa.
I mean, the go back.
3-point something average, right?
Yeah, so we went from a 3.95, 2.8, 2.9 to a 3.15. Yeah, that is huge. Yeah, that is huge, and I think a big contributor to that is that there were fewer outliers because there were fewer students who were actually getting the D's and the F's. So, yeah.
And is maybe you've already answered this, but is your take on that the students that really are more challenged
Yeah, because they were getting their questions answered, so they could actually make progress on like an assignment or studying for an exam. They're looking at old exam questions and they say, okay, this is kind of the level of the question. I don't know this concept at all, but it's 2 a.m. and there's no one who can help me, and here is something that is endorsed by the instructor. I think that matters as well.
There is some university pilot project, I don't remember the name right now, that is also a similar type of capability as Gen X. Did you evaluate that in comparison to this?
No, actually, I have not.
What is the name of what I'm thinking of? UT Sage.
Oh yeah, you mean this? Oh yes. So okay, I thought you were talking about some other university. Yes. Oh yeah, I've used UT Sage. So this semester, this is right after Julie and her team presented, at one of our engineering symposiums. I did actually create a Sage tutor for one topic in a different class in my circuit theory class. It was towards the end of the semester, kind of a difficult topic. I created with the help of our innovation center designer who helped me create this Sage tool for that one topic. And I offered it to the students. This is a very math-heavy class. And so the response that I got from students was, it's great for explanations, but it's not so great for numerical calculations. And so, the reason this worked for 306 for this course is because it does not really have numerical calculations. It's just thinking through problems. It's engineering, it's developing engineering thinking. And you can do that if you know some of the underlying, the foundational concepts. But if those foundational concepts are shaky, then it's hard to sort of build on that.
All right, thank you, Nina. And I just, for any other questions, if you might have after the session, I have to wrap up now, but just like to thank our panelists again for their presentations and their wonderful work. Thank you again. We'll get started with our next session soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll get started in just a few minutes with our last panel, which is talking about some of the infrastructure we have at UT, including UT Sage. So excited to see you, and stay afterward for the reception with some drinks and networking. Thanks.